Today on Hearts of Heroes, a woman and her dog are swept away in a roaring river.
The current was so strong that it was knocking me off my feet.
First responders will have to attempt a rescue by land, air, and water.
This was starting to turn into a frenzy. How are we going to get this canine out?
Plus, a training exercise turns into a rescue when first responders watch two boys fall into a frozen lake right after they finished their training.
We knew that we had seconds to get these kids out.
The drive to save, that's a first responder for you.
Pets over people. It's not just a bumper sticker or a meme. Many animal lovers would risk their lives for their beloved pets, like this woman whose dog was swept into a swollen river. She didn't think twice about jumping in after him.
But this heroic gesture turned harrowing when both owner and animal were caught in the rushing currents, leading to a daring water rescue.
Dispatch went out for a person and a canine that had fallen into the water.
When I saw Scooby get trapped in there and I saw how quickly he was moving, I actually just dropped all my stuff and jumped right in. The current was so strong that it was knocking me off my feet.
You have multiple victims and they're moving targets.
I was terrified.
When you think of Southern California, you might envision golden beaches, surfers, and crashing waves. But the city of Los Angeles also has a series of waterways that flow to nearby lakes and reservoirs, and of course the Pacific Ocean.
LA River is fed by tributaries that run throughout the San Fernando Valley, going from the foothills down into the basin.
The Los Angeles River is very unique. Its whole point is to really get water out of LA as quick as possible when it rains. So when we have the anticipated rain coming in, we're going to proactively pre-deploy our experts, the Swiftwater Rescue team, who will be in different key areas.
Los Angeles first responders use their state-of-the-art equipment to do nearly 60 Swiftwater rescues each year.
If we end up doing a contact rescue in the LA River, we're able to capture that victim and then extract ourselves out via helicopter, boat, or watercraft.
Never underestimate the power of swift-moving water. It takes only 6 inches of water to sweep you off your feet and only 12 inches of water to move a vehicle.
Angela Buono and her 3-year-old rescue dog got to feel the sheer power of the water when they took their daily walk along the LA River.
My favorite spot to bring Scooby is right at the base of the dam because there's a lot of nice hiking trails and hills to go up and down. That day started pretty typical. It had rained, so I waited for it to stop raining, came here, and the river was pretty intense by that time. The water was rushing down in waves with the rainfall. It was pretty shocking to see the dramatic change from one day to the next, from it being almost like a creek to raging waters.
Scooby ran down to play in the river before Angela could call him back.
Scooby actually was already ahead of me, and I noticed that the water was moving really quickly. So by the time I was able to react, he was already taken away by the river. When I saw Scooby get trapped in there and I saw how quickly he was moving, I actually just dropped all my stuff and jumped right in. The current was so strong that it was knocking me off my feet.
Angela managed to grab hold of Scooby, but they were in a remote area and at the mercy of the rushing water.
So I kept trying to find little pieces that I could catch on to try to secure something to stop us. It was just moving way too quickly for us to even latch on to anything.
Coming up, Angela has to make a heart-wrenching decision.
I'll never forget releasing Scooby into the abyss of the current and watching him just float away rapidly.
And later, two boys crashed through the ice of a frozen lake just yards away from first responders.
And then next thing you know, they disappear. Boom, and they're gone.
But first, here's a safety tip for pet lovers who live in flood zones.
In a situation like we just saw, It's understandable why pet owners like Angela would feel inclined to jump in after their pet. Remember, even small amounts of floodwaters can be real dangerous.
It takes just 6 inches of moving water to knock a grown person off their feet. In a situation like this, typically it's safer to wait for the first responders to conduct the rescue.
Remember, when it comes to fast-moving water rescues, it's best to leave it to the pros.
In March of 2022, Angela Buono and her dog Scooby were swept into the Los Angeles River. They were struggling to keep their heads above water.
After a good 15, 20 minutes, I started getting concerned because I was getting very tired. I finally saw people looking over with their cell phones saying, "Hey, do you need help?" Gratefully, they all immediately called for help.
The incident commander felt it was in the best interest to effect a quick rescue via helicopter hoist versus ground-based at that point.
All of a sudden, not only did we see the helicopter, but you could feel it. You could feel the wind from the propellers, so it was very like a dramatic scene.
First responders call this type of helicopter rescue a dynamic short-haul rescue.
The firefighter came down and he said, "You know, you need to release him. We'll go back for him." And I'll never forget releasing Scooby into the abyss of the current and watching him just float away rapidly. When I was initially rescued, they brought me into an ambulance to check my vitals. They convinced me to go to the hospital. I didn't want to leave Scooby. I knew that, you know, he was still rushing down the river.
So we lowered our firefighter from the helicopter once again to effect a rescue. Again, that poor dog is scared, cold, biting. So it became very difficult to effect a rescue with that dog.
We determined that as the dog was going downstream, our river basin ended up widening out, which ended up making less flow and then also less depth of the river. As he ended up moving downstream, we had a greater chance to end up doing more of a land-based rescue on that.
Well, this is the area of the LA River where we enacted that very last rescue of Scooby. So at this point, the LA River reduced in severity greatly, and we knew that, and that's why we had this as a tactic for a rescue point once the dog was a little more tired out, less active, biting rescuers less, didn't have quite the energy to run around and evade us.
One of the members of the Swiftwater team ended up having a piece of webbing that he was able to lasso around Scooby. Some rescues end up going flawlessly and others get a little messy. And this one was an improvise, adapt, and overcome. And sometimes it isn't pretty.
Still, the rescue was a success. And within the hour, word got back to Angela that Scooby was safe.
I just burst out into tears. I was relieved. I was so happy. And I was also kind of all of these emotions coming out at once. When I got Scooby home, he snapped right back to the good old Scooby. He went and sat right on the couch and, you know, it was like nothing ever happened.
Soon after the rescue, Angela got to visit the station house to thank her heroes.
Hi.
Are you guys hungry?
How's Scooby doing?
He is amazing, thanks to you guys.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, back to his good old energetic self. And from the bottom of my heart, Scooby means the absolute world to me. You essentially saved my child. Thank you. It seems so little.
It's an honor and privilege to be able to serve you and the great citizens of the city of LA, and we'd like to end up saying that we're here for everybody, every day, 365, 24 hours a day.
Thank you guys so much.
You're part of the LAFD family now.
Yes, my real life superheroes is what you guys are.
There were a ton of heroes out that day. Real life superheroes is what I've been calling them because that's what they are to me.
Coming up, The clock is ticking. 2 boys falling into a frozen lake.
He didn't have much more time before he was going to be underwater.
Frozen lakes and ponds often become a winter playground, but that playground can get dangerous fast, as 2 teenagers found out when the ice shattered under their feet.
Fortunately, their local fire department had been training for just this kind of rescue, and it would take both courage and expertise to try and save 2 young lives.
Every year we do ice rescue training.
We went down to the park, do our normal training.
Chief McShaney asked me, do you see those 2 guys walking across the lake?
And then next thing you know, boom, and they're gone.
We knew that we had seconds to get these kids out.
Maryland Heights, Missouri, a small suburb of St. Louis with a population of 27,000. It's home to Creve-Coeur County Park, the largest in the St. Louis park system. In the warmer months, this picturesque lake is a popular place for folks to play. But in the winter, the lake freezes over and the ice can be deceptive.
Missouri doesn't get cold enough and stay cold enough long enough for that ice to get a big, hard, thick surface on it that you could walk across and not have to worry about it.
Because of these dangers, the Maryland Heights Fire Department is trained in what's called ice rescue.
Ice training is very important because we do have people that will put themselves in danger and fall through the ice.
We're taught basically to recognize the quality of the ice, how to put on our suits, how to prepare for it, tie the ropes to facilitate with the rescue that we attach to ourselves and to the patient.
Sheldon Yellen from our sponsor Belfour Property Restoration got an up-close and personal look at this life-saving gear.
These are what we call our ice rescue suits. They're basically watertight. Once the zipper's pulled up, they're lined with a very heavy amount of thermal insulation, and that's the big difference. That keeps our body heat inside, so we don't get hypothermic. We can keep our wits about us.
While first responders are protected in these suits, if you should ever find yourself in freezing water, there are a few things you should do to keep yourself protected.
Once you're out there and you break through the surface of the ice and you're exposed to that cold water, time is not on your side.
Remain calm, try to self-rescue.
Get help.
for help. Yeah.
Once you're in this situation, stay calm, conserve your energy, and somehow signal for help.
Correct.
It's only a matter of seconds before a rescue turns into a recovery, and nobody wants that.
Rescuers would be faced with exactly this scenario one afternoon in February of 2022.
We're training out here at the lake for ice rescue, which we bring out our equipment and our trucks.
Chief Reinhardt put us through different situations. We went through different techniques on how to rescue. We basically wrapped up training and we were kind of just hanging out talking.
Chief McShaney asked me, do you see those 2 guys walking across the lake? And I remember just thinking to myself, what are those guys doing?
And then next thing you know, they disappeared. Boom, and they're gone.
And that's when we went into action.
We immediately changed from finishing up a training to an active rescue scenario.
We had seconds to get these kids out.
Coming up, the 2 boys fight hypothermia as first responders race to free them from the freezing lake.
He didn't have much more time before he was going to be underwater.
But first, a tip for any aspiring heroes.
There's nothing more fun than watching a movie or playing a video game on your computer.
But computers can be used for so much more. Some first responders like myself will use a computer like this to control everything from the pump pressure to stowing the ladder when we're done.
So make sure you learn your computer skills. You too can become a lifesaver one day, just like John.
In February of 2022, Maryland Heights firefighters were on Creve-Coeur Lake for ice rescue training. But as the team wrapped up for the day, they were shocked to see 2 teenagers fall through the ice. They knew they only had moments to attempt a rescue.
Hypothermia sets in so fast. You have probably a minute and a half or so, and then you're going to start getting numb and you can't move.
The teenagers were 350 feet offshore when they fell through the ice. And it was the fast action of these firefighters that would give them a chance.
Rescuers needed to get to the boys within minutes, but they didn't have enough rope to reach them from their training position.
As soon as we saw them fall through the ice, we immediately jumped into the truck. We had to reposition the truck over closer to them.
One of the first things we do on any kind of water rescue is we try to get eyes on the victim.
Right from the get-go, I knew I was going to be a rescuer. My job was to go out there, gain access to the victims as quickly as we can, try and keep their head above water and get them back up to safety.
The guys got off the truck, they got the suits back on and brought out their ropes.
As firefighter John Kruger manned the lines, firefighters David Herman, Chris Kirchhoffer, and Steve Reinhardt prepared for the rescue.
I got the line tethered to me that I was going to help make the rescue with, and we made our way out to the victims.
I remember one of the boys was still holding on to the ice shelf, which is ideal to try and keep their head above water. And then the other gentleman, he had his head just barely sticking up above water.
That was to us an indicator he's in really bad shape, because it's not normal just to sit in ice cold water and do nothing. So we knew that at that point he was really beginning to get affected by a hypothermic condition.
It kind of was just becoming more docile and, basically letting go. So he didn't have much more time before he was going to be underwater.
But suddenly, things went from bad to worse.
We got about halfway out there and realized that we didn't have enough line. So we had one guy on shore tending the lines, which usually we'll have multiple guys tending the lines.
The rope bags we had initially weren't long enough, but we were able to get additional rope bags as other rescuers showed up, connect them in, and we were able to connect people to each other with their ropes.
Once we gained access, you could see the ice start cracking around me. I fell through. I tried to break whatever ice I could so I can get over to the victims.
Simultaneously, firefighter Kirchhoffer went around the right side, and the ice gave way underneath him. So I maintained contact with the first victim, and I was reaching out to tell him, just hang on to the rope. And as I reached my hand out, at that point, the ice gave way underneath me as well, which put me really in a good position right in front of him. Firefighter Kirchhoffer had reached the number 2 victim and had hands on him, so I knew he wasn't going to sink.
So we kind of more or less just dropped, dove, and gave him a bear hug and worked the line around him and clipped him in with a carabiner. And at that point, we had him, and he wasn't going anywhere. And the only thing he could say to me at that point was, he's like, I can't feel my legs.
So within a few seconds of actually entering the water, we had the rescue ropes around the number 1, number 2 victim, and then we were already signaling shore to begin the pullback.
The boys were safe and out of the water, but they needed immediate medical attention.
Our number 2 victim had a body core temperature of 90 degrees. That is very cold by any standard.
We had to basically carry him over to the stretcher and get him onto the ambulance, where they had already running and warmed up, got the cold clothes off and got warm blankets on him.
By being there at the lake when this happened, definitely made it better for the kids to have a successful outcome.
This event is a good reminder for everybody to go to ice rink, stay off the ice completely, because within seconds you can go unconscious and end up drowning.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Great. Good to see you. Good to see you. On behalf of everybody throughout the country, I just want to say thank you. I know you guys look at this as this is your job, but thank you, sincerely thank you, for saving the lives of 2 young kids.
Well, thank you for recognizing the district and these guys that stepped up and did the job that day. And I'm extremely proud of them, what they did, what took place, limited manpower, limited equipment, and they pulled off a really good rescue.
That's why we train every day, because we never know when we're going to need our skills. So it's always good to be up to snuff to everything and be ready to go at a moment's notice.
And you guys you do it all day, every day, and when we're all running out, you're running in. And so I have just one question to ask. Which one of you looked the best in one of those ice suits?
That'd be me.
That'd be
Chief. I gotta go with the Chief.
It's the Chief.
In or out of the suit.
Thank you
very
for your
much for
service.
coming
We're
on.
so grateful.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
sir.
for your service. We're really grateful. Thank you. Thanks for
Thanks
your
for coming
service.
out.
God bless. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Joe.
Thank you so much. We often speak of the bravery of our first responders. Sometimes it's easy to forget the hours of training these dedicated men and women undergo.
Luckily for us, we can always count on these heroes to be ready and trained for every emergency. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.